Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Time is running out to make your voice heard. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. There are only about 3 hours left to cast your ballot in the special elections being held in various parts of the county. Right now, election workers at the Registrar of Voters office are getting ready to count all of the ballots. And that is where KPBS reporter John Carroll is live with the latest. John.
Hey Maya, it has been pretty quiet over here. I guess you could describe it as a trickle of voters, both coming into the registrar's office and dropping off their ballots at the drive-through location around the corner. Now we're talking about 4 items on the various ballots around the county. Democrat Monica Montgomery Stepp is facing off against Republican Amy Reichart for the District 4 seat for the County Board of Supervisors. That's officially a nonpartisan race. Voters in Chula Vista are voting to fill their now vacant city attorney seat, and voters in Rainbow and Fallbrook are deciding whether to separate their water districts from the San Diego County Water Authority. Now, about an hour ago, we got a look inside at what was going on here, and things were going very smoothly from what we could tell. The video you're seeing now is of workers extracting ballots from their mail-in envelopes. From there, they go to the tabulation machines. Registrar of Voters Cynthia Paz says she's seen fairly heavy turnout today around the county. But overall, based on other recent special elections, she says she's expecting a fairly low turnout for this election, somewhere between 16 and about 25% of the electorate in the various voting areas, or the various areas that are voting, I should say. That's in contrast to presidential election years, where turnout is usually around 80%. Now, you do still have time to vote, and Paz took a moment this afternoon to point out how very important it is that everyone participate.
These local contests, they tend to impact you the most. These are these small special elections. These are the representatives of your county, of your city, school districts. These are all critical positions, and voters need to have their voice heard.
Now, along with here at the registrar's office, there are still vote centers around the county that are open. They are open until 8 o'clock tonight, and Paz says as long as you're in line by 8 o'clock, you're good. Everything election-related can be found on the KPBS Voter Hub, and that is found at kpbs.org. Live at the Registrar of Voters office in Kearney Mesa, John Carroll, KPBS News. Maya?
John, can you give us an idea about approximately when we can start to expect to see some returns tonight?
Well, because of all those mailed-in ballots and ones that have been dropped off over the last days, they will have a fairly big count right after 8 o'clock. But then they will continue to count through the evening, and Paz told me she expects to have fairly solid numbers by tomorrow. The registrar does have until December 7th to certify the election. Maya?
John, thanks for that report. Today marks the last major voting day before the 2024 presidential primary season, and candidates from both parties are searching for clues on America's leanings. Coming up, how some of the issues may shape campaigns around the country. Several Chula Vista city leaders are calling on council member Andrea Cardenas to step down. Cardenas and her brother, a political consultant, are facing charges of fraud, grand theft, and tax evasion. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki has details on what could happen next.
Last week, the San Diego District Attorney announced 7 felony charges against Andrea Cardenas and 5 against her brother, Jesus Cardenas. The DA accused them of lying in order to get a loan of $175,000 from the federal government's Paycheck Protection Program and attempting to launder the money and put it towards personal use.
Now we'll go to council member comments. Member Cardenas.
I just wanted to...
In statements yesterday, Republican Mayor John McCann and Democratic Councilmember Jose Preciado called for Cardenas to step down. For many in Chula Vista, news of the charges has brought a mix of frustration, anger, and sadness. Mike Diaz is a former city council member who lost his seat to Cardenas in 2020.
Somebody that takes money that should be going to workers
who are struggling during COVID and uses it for political purposes and to enrich their own personal lives, paying off allegedly, American Express cards and whatever else. That should disgust everybody.
At this point, Cardenas is not required to resign. Like many other cities, Chula Vista doesn't have set rules for what happens when a sitting council member is charged with a crime, only for if they're convicted. Last year, the Chula Vista City Council did consider a change to the city charter that would have allowed elected officials facing felony charges to be removed from office. But the city council voted to reject that change. Some council members argued it crossed a line into punishing elected officials without giving them due process.
There are matters that are, appropriately before the courts, typically. And so anytime the city as an entity wades into that or weighs in, even in the matter of a suspension, I think puts the city at some risk.
In a statement, Andrea Cardenas says she hopes people will give her a chance to defend herself. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Well, the big story has been that cool down that pushed through. We are much cooler than what we were just on Monday, and those winds have really started to ramp up. But hey, we're going to see a shift in those winds, and Santa Ana winds are on the way throughout the middle of the week. We're going to track those for you coming up.
California utility regulators heard about high electricity prices and the proposed monthly income-based flat fee for utility bills at a hearing yesterday in Escondido. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says residents had a chance to sound off.
The California Public Utilities Commission was looking for input on a mostly technical change to San Diego Gas and Electric's rate structure. Instead, they heard a lot about other concerns.
We're victims. We pay the highest electricity rates in the nation.
And the facts bear that out. The Public Advocate's Office says SDG&E rates are up 105% over the past decade. Residential prices are more than double the national average. Residents also raise concerns about complicated bills, rooftop solar rules, and income-based flat fees for utility bills. San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond says the legislatively mandated shift would upend precedent.
The way that we've always paid for energy before is the more you use, the more you pay.
He says income-based fees are unfair. Utility officials say those flat fees will actually help low-income customers pay less for power. A decision on those fees is still months away in a process that's generated a lot of comment.
The administrative law judge in that particular proceeding has internalized thousands of pages of public testimony and public comment, and we're in the phase in which they are investigating that portion.
I think that's going to conclude the public comment.
Regulators say yesterday's comments will be added to the record. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Open enrollment for Covered California is here again. Leaders say there's around 100,000 uninsured San Diegans eligible for financial assistance through the health insurance marketplace or Medi-Cal. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says more incentives are available this year.
Covered California leaders and supporters were in Cesar Chavez Park kicking off a statewide open enrollment tour.
I believe, and I think the state's budget is a reflection of those values. Healthcare really is a human right.
There's a record low 6.5% of Californians who are uninsured, but UCLA research estimates 1.3 million uninsured residents qualify for free or low-cost coverage through Covered California or Medi-Cal.
For many, they view cost as the primary reason. In fact, nearly 70% of uninsured Americans cite the high price of healthcare as their primary barrier to getting covered. That is why we are working to bridge the gap in affordability.
She says 2/3 of Covered California enrollees are eligible for health plans at $10 a month or less. Officials say there's more financial incentives than previous years. The most recent state budget includes a subsidy program to further lower costs for about 600,000 residents.
We know that certain communities are less likely to enroll in coverage, including our Latino and African American communities, including those that have recently immigrated into California. So it's so important that we share just information about how this all works, because our healthcare system is complicated.
While factors that contribute to that are complex, Altman says one key reason is trust in government. Officials say all consultations are confidential.
Your information will not be used in any way. I understand that the trust in government is on a decline, but this is so important that you must do this and see what your options are to cover your family.
Covered California hit record high enrollment numbers during the pandemic, but officials say 6.5% of state residents remaining uninsured is too high. People can quickly check online to see different options and rates. Open enrollment continues through January 31st. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A proposal to provide more abortion education and shut down unaccredited pregnancy centers failed to move forward today. The County Board of Supervisors were deadlocked, with the 2 Democrats voting in favor and 2 Republicans voting against. The policy will continue to come back to the board unless Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer requests it be removed from the agenda. County leaders are exploring new ways to support those suffering from addiction and homelessness. The Board of Supervisors unanimously voted to develop a pilot program to expand access to housing for unhoused individuals who also struggle with addiction. The county's chief administration officer will look at ways to expand recovery housing for 100 unhoused people in North County. Rady Children's Hospital secretly surveilled a bedridden teenager and her parents using at least one hidden camera in a hospital room, and it was done without a warrant. That is according to a lawsuit filed by the family. KPBS investigative reporter Scott Rodd spoke with the family in part 1 of this 2-part investigation.
I know it. I'll let you read this.
Bill Meyer and Dana Gaske are shuffling through a thick file of photos, letters, and drawings from their daughter Madison Meyer's childhood. The papers are fanned out on the dining room table of the family's Carlsbad home.
Hi, Dad. How are you doing? I hope you have a great birthday with extra smiles. Thanks for putting up with me and my shoulder this year, even if it was tough. I love you so much, Madison. And she drew the family on all of her fingers, and Olive and our other dog, Scouty.
It looks like a scrapbook of keepsakes, but it's not. It's actually a collection of exhibits from the parents' legal battle to retain custody of Madison.
Our attorneys had just asked us that if to pull together some pictures in case we were needing to have them in trial.
For nearly a year, in 2019 and into 2020, Gaske and Meyer could only visit their daughter a couple times a week in the hospital as they fought with San Diego County in juvenile dependency court. The county and a few employees at Rady Children's Hospital suspected the parents were harming Madison and interfering with her treatment. It's known as medical child abuse, or Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and it poses a serious risk of death to child victims. The parents proved their innocence and regained custody of Madison. But it emerged during the dependency trial that Rady had been secretly surveilling the family in Madison's private hospital room while the county conducted its investigation. The family alleges the surveillance went on for nearly 40 days, but captured no evidence of abuse.
It was horrific. It was a nightmare. They tore our family apart. They literally tore our family apart.
Gaske and Meyer are currently suing Rady and the county in federal court. Rady declined an interview request and would not comment on the Meyer family's case, citing patient privacy protections. The county also declined an interview request, but emphasized that social workers are required by law to report and investigate suspected child abuse. Madison is now 20 years old. She's filed a similar lawsuit in state court and is represented by the same team of attorneys. She declined to be interviewed, but agreed to let her parents tell the family's story. Madison was an active kid growing up.
I mean, she wanted to try everything that she could. It was always about wanting to try soccer and then wanting to do gymnastics.
But this typical youthful exuberance came with unusual injuries. Between the ages of 9 and 12, she broke her foot, both wrists, and a finger, and also required knee surgery. And then Madison dislocated her shoulder at a surf camp. That marked a turning point for her health. The shoulder never healed properly and kept dislocating.
She had a lot of pain. She was having trouble with subluxing a lot. It would actually come out of the socket sometimes. She was putting it back in. And we had seen several people in orthopedics trying to figure out what to do with all this.
Doctors eventually diagnosed her with a genetic connective tissue disorder called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Madison had shoulder surgery, but the problems persisted. At her middle school graduation, she delivered a speech wearing an elaborate sling wrapped around her shoulder.
Thank you, Ms. Coy, for being everything to me at school, and thank you especially to my parents. I'm only successful because of you and the backpack you filled with supplies. Thank you.
After a second reconstructive shoulder surgery, doctors gave her another diagnosis, complex regional pain syndrome. They urged Gasky and Meyer to enroll their daughter in an inpatient pain management program.
She suffered. She would talk to me about, Mom, make this pain go away. And as a parent, when you hear that, you're like, how have we done everything that's out there?
Meanwhile, the diagnoses kept piling up. By age 15, Madison had spells of dizziness from a nervous system disorder. Later, she would suffer from seizures and, for a while, needed a feeding tube.
She kept saying, is there something that can be done? I want to be like other kids. I want to be able to do fun stuff.
Gasky and Meyer contacted specialists around the country, desperately searching for answers. But they'd soon have a new fight on their hands, trying to keep custody of Madison. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
And you can tune in tomorrow for part 2 of this KPBS investigation to learn how the hospital secretly surveilled the Meyer family and to hear from experts about the use of surveillance in suspected medical child abuse cases.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, fighting intensifies around Gaza City 1 month after the Hamas terror attacks. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
It's the last major election day before the 2024 presidential primaries kick into high gear, and campaigns will be looking to some bellwether states for clues tonight. Karen Kafa is on Capitol Hill with a look at what to watch.
Election Day 2023's key contests.
Let's get out there. Let's get this thing done.
A big chance for both parties.
Get out and vote. Get out and vote.
To gauge what might motivate voters in 2024.
It does make sense to take a look at any kind of signals that one is getting from people actually going out and voting, or as importantly, not going out and voting.
2 governor's races test Democratic mettle in red states. In Kentucky, incumbent Democrat Andy Beshear faces Republican State Attorney General Daniel Cameron. In Mississippi, Democrat Brandon Presley aims to unseat Republican incumbent Tate Reeves. In Virginia, all 140 seats in the legislature are up for grabs. Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin not on the ballot, but campaigning to turn the state red.
I think voters are going to come out today and they're going to help us hold our House and flip our Senate.
Democrats calling in help from former President Barack Obama.
I'm calling to remind you that today is Election Day in Virginia.
And in Ohio, voters are considering an initiative that would enshrine abortion rights in the state's constitution. It will also offer a look at how reproductive rights are motivating the current electorate.
If it turns out that Democrats don't show up for that one to the same degree that they did even a few months ago, then that would be a real worrying sign for Democrats.
Also on the ballot, every seat in New Jersey's state legislature and in the New York City Council, where Republicans seek to narrow Democrats' typical Northeast strongholds. In Washington, Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
The City of San Diego and nonprofit Wounded Warrior Project are announcing a first-in-the-nation partnership that will lead to a prominent city job for one post-9/11 veteran and potentially more. Here's KPBS military and veterans reporter Andrew Dyer.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria says veterans are key contributors to the region, and he'd like the city government to reflect that. He says this new Veteran Engagement Program Coordinator position is key to achieving that goal.
What we want that person to do is to help us to recruit from the roughly 15,000 people who discharge from military service in our community each year and really encourage them to come work for the city of San Diego.
The Wounded Warrior Project is contributing $50,000 of the job's $130,000 annual salary. Jose Ramos is the vice president for government and community relations at the nonprofit. He says it's the first such partnership in the nation.
One of our first conversations revolved around the city of San Diego's mayor's office's priority of supporting and better supporting a very well-connected military veteran community. They recognize that there were opportunities for a city to do more.
Whoever's hired for the role will work closely with the mayor's office to develop veteran recruitment programs for the city. They'll also serve as a liaison to local military commanders, as well as veteran organizations. Qualified candidates served after 2001 and separated from the service within the last 6 years, and have a service-connected disability. Gloria says they'll have full agency to impact the city.
The agency they'll have is that they're literally going to be making up the work as they go, recognizing that San Diego is very comfortable in experimenting in this space, because what we're going to get at the end of the day are highly trained individuals who can serve our neighborhoods, and we need a lot more of those folks in order to serve the 8th largest city in the country.
The city council approved the final authorization last week, and the position is live on the city's website. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
A resolution to the Hollywood actors' strike may be in sight. Actors continue to march on picket lines for the 117th day today, but the SAG-AFTRA union and Hollywood studios are reportedly close to reaching an agreement on the use of artificial intelligence. It's been a major sticking point in negotiations. Yesterday, the union responded to the major studios' last, best, and final contract offer, saying the two sides still hadn't reached an agreement on several essential items, including the use of AI. A measure being voted on by Fallbrook and Rainbow today could impact all San Diego County weather users. If members of those communities vote to leave the San Diego County Water District, they would join the Eastern Municipal Water District, and that is based out of Riverside County. The San Diego Water Authority says if that happens, it would mean rates will increase for everyone else in the county. Fallbrook and Rainbow are agricultural communities. Some there say they hope this measure will stop the rising cost of water in a region that's already seeing their trade die.
The cost of water continues to go up. How is that going to affect the farm here?
Well, it means that our cost of our fruit has to go up.
If the measure passes, both Fallbrook and Rainbow would have to pay exit fees to the San Diego County Water Authority. Those fees would cost in the tens of millions of dollars over a 5-year period.
Well, let's start you off with your weather headlines. What you need to know as we head over these next few days. Well, the pattern is changing. Those winds are going to shift to a northeasterly flow, and well, that's going to bring in Santa Ana winds into the picture. With that, we'll have decreasing humidity, which is going to cause a fire weather threat. And as we head into the weekend, warm days and cool nights ahead. Tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 56 around Metro, though we are dealing with a few low clouds and fog that can cause some concern on the roads even throughout early tomorrow. So just make sure you're taking it easy if you do have to head out. If we look at tonight's forecast across the rest of the region, well, Oceanside, you're dropping down to a low of 50, Ramona 44, Mount Laguna 36, and Borrego Springs 48. But as we head into the day tomorrow, we are going to rise. San Diego 71, Oceanside 74, Ramona 75, and Borrego Springs 77. So I know we experienced a big cool off from Monday, and as we are heading into the middle of the week with the cool off, well, those winds are going to start to ramp up and then change direction. And well, that's why we're dealing with some Santa Ana winds, especially in areas like the Burbank region, down through San Bernardino County, and then along the passes across SoCal. So again, those winds are going to really start to ramp up even across the Santa Ana Mountains. Elevated fire threat is going to be a concern. No outdoor burning recommended. Gusts between 40 to 60 miles per hour. Your AccuWeather local storm max holds at 80 miles per hour. So it is still going to be quite windy as we head into the middle of the week. Now we are going to rise slightly into Thursday there along the coast. Again, it is going to be breezy, and we take a slight dip on Friday, but then we're back up on that warming trend by the weekend with warm days and cool nights. That's the story inland as well. We are rising to the 80s by Thursday, staying there even throughout the week. weekend, though it is going to be breezy at times throughout Wednesday and Thursday. Again, that fire weather threat is very real. Make sure you are staying weather aware. For the mountains, well, we'll rise to the 50s again by this weekend, and for the desert, you're back up to the 80s by Saturday and Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Fleet Week is back in San Diego. The annual event celebrates and honors those who serve and protect our country. From now through Sunday, visitors at the Harbor Pier can enjoy live music, food, and several public activities. And those include ship tours, military displays, cooking contests, boot camp challenges, and a military family day. Fleet Week culminates in a Veterans Day boat parade and concert on Sunday. Head on over to your closest national park on Saturday. The National Park Service is waiving all entrance fees for Veterans Day, but you will still have to pay for services like the camping, boat launches, and/or some special tours. Though there are more than 400 national park sites across the country, this is the last chance for free admission this year, by the way. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition is talking with 3 Americans who made it out of Gaza and returned home to Massachusetts this week. And KPBS Midday Edition has the story of how a Northern California tribe fought for years to get their ancestral land back. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.